The second section is topical map codes. Basically, these are things we explain to our writer when training them regarding context structure so that when they are just writing words, they inherently understand what they mean. Now, FS, or featured snippet, this means that the answer in the first paragraph should be exactly 40 words long so that we can rank within the featured snippet. After that, there is PAA, which stands for people also ask. Here too, we give a reference that we are writing this answer specifically for the people also ask section in order to appear in it. Next is anchor text. You probably already know that this is the text of our URL through which we link to other pages. Next is listing. Now, there are many types of lists. There are ordered lists and unordered lists. Ordered lists have numbering, and unordered lists have those circular bullets. The thing about listings is that there is an introductory sentence at the start where we explain what the list is about. For example, how many provinces are there in Pakistan? So the next line will first have an introductory sentence. Pakistan has 5 provinces. Then the list will follow. Punjab, KPK, etc. Now, this list can be unordered because it doesn't require a specific sequence. But if it were a cooking recipe, an ordered list would be necessary. Meaning, suppose there is a procedure or recipe for boiling eggs. First, you take water and heat it. That's step 2. Then, in the third step, once it is hot enough, you put the eggs in. Then, in the fourth step, you leave the eggs for a certain time. In the fifth step, you check if they are boiled or not, perhaps by cracking one open, meaning sequence is required there. But for an answer like the provinces, sequence is not needed. It can be in an unordered list. Next is the definitive answer. This is the long form answer. This answer will contain all concepts, context reinforcement, and qualifiers and signifiers of an entity will also be used. Additionally, the connections and other related things, meaning you define a topic or an entity from every aspect, you define it, or you write it according to the context. There might be many people who still haven't understood the word context. If I explain context in simple words, these are words that provide the meaning of other words. If I mention bank, and if money or related things like a banker are being discussed, then you get the idea that this is referring to the financial bank. If soil or water is being discussed, then the context reveals that we are talking about the riverbank. Furthermore, there are many other examples of this. Sometimes the same thing is used for different purposes, and the context tells us what exactly is being discussed. Often during conversations, sometimes you joke with friends and they don't immediately grasp the context. They understand the thing differently. Sometimes people have a habit of making dirty jokes, and the other person doesn't immediately get the context. Then they have to explain the context for the meaning to become clear. Our politicians complain about this daily. Okay, next is instructional list, list with commands. List item, an item from a list, such as first, second, or third. Next is list outro. This is a paragraph written after our list is complete that is called the list outro. Next is table definition. If you are creating a table about something, perhaps comparing two countries or comparing different things, you need a semantic context line above it to make it clear what the table is about. Next is table, meaning if you ask the writer to create a table, they should write the table with full detail, ensuring all columns are included. This is the same thing I mentioned, the intro that comes at the start, followed by the paragraph. After that, unordered list, which, as I mentioned earlier, does not have a sequence. Next is semantic closeness. There's a whole article on this, concepts that are related in terms of lexical semantics. Next is expansion of evidence. When you mention something, you define it in various ways. You mention a study or research from a university. Next is factual proposition, an indisputable factual proposition based on evidence, meaning a factual proposition that is universal, which everyone accepts. For example, water quenches thirst. This is a statement that everyone in the world accepts, regardless of the country. Next is synonym usage, a word we use in place of another word like auto and vehicle. They can be used interchangeably. Next is inclusion text. These are often words that we write in double quotation marks. These words are used to improve contextual sharpness. Next is named entity recognition, NER system. If someone has watched the lecture on this, they would know its job is to identify entities. After that, using a long-form definitive answer to define an entity, focusing on how you use pronouns correctly so that the entity being mentioned is clearly understood. Next is the sentiment system. There is also a separate lecture on this, discussing how you should avoid using negative words and hurting the reader's sentiments. Next is co-occurring word pairs, words that are used together. Next is passive proposition. There is also a separate lecture on this, focusing on how you should avoid using casual language. You must use the proper language specific to the niche. For instance, doctors have a specific language, and a nutrition expert has a distinct language. Similarly, a person in technology has a different language. Every field has a specific language pattern that is used. Next is comparative proposition, comparing an effect, service, entity, or its attributes. Next is head word, a word used to define something. Okay, this was also discussed in the semantic rule section. When using a word like Bitcoin, you use words like BTC in brackets. If it is rupees, you use rupees. Sequential synthesis with promise. Create a promise and follow it through sequential semantics. Similar entities. Include entities of the same type. Related attributes. Include the related attributes of an entity. Criteria of adjective. Include the criteria of the adjective from a proposition. There are separate lectures on these topics, what a proposition is, what an adjective is, etc. Variable position of proposition. Which parts of a proposition are changeable? Conditional propositions. Which propositions are conditional or not? Next is statistical evidence. Here you use graphs, charts, or things created based on statistics. For example, graphs showing the increase in the male population or the female population. Any graph related to propositional statements. Next is entity type matching. This is Google's system that matches the search query to understand what kind of entity the user is looking for. Are they looking for an animal, a car, a restaurant, or a plant? What kind of entity are they looking for? After that, you must use the main defining terms of your article in the title. Next is representative image, which we also call the featured image. This includes the alt text for the heading. We apply alt text through the heading. Next is unique value opportunity. If you have watched the lecture on gaining unique information, you will understand this. Next is evidence repeating, which involves repeating previous evidence based on context. Next is knowledge domain intersection. This involves connecting two broad topics. There are many things I am mentioning right now that can be explained using these words, but you will only understand them clearly when you watch the specific lectures on them. Contextual domain-based terms. These are the words specific to your niche. I mentioned this in the lectures on knowledge domain and contextual domain. When Google crawls, it crawls the words within your articles, and based on that, it creates a macro, a word map. I explained this concept there. Next are regional signals, including local names from different websites following a specific paragraph format.